See, earlier this month, I had been invited by the Govind Ballabh Pant Institute of Social Sciences, which is affiliated to the Allahabad University, and I had gone there to give a talk on the state, agriculture, and rural development. Now, this is now in Prayagraj because Allahabad's name has changed, but it brought back many nostalgic memories of the days when I used to visit Allahabad University as a student. Those are the days when we frequented Allahabad University, Civil Lines, Band Road, and all the areas around it, the United Coffee House. These are all the areas that I used to frequent when I was a student at JNU. So it was very interesting to go back to the city after nearly 40 years and see what has changed and what has not changed. Now, what has not changed in the city is its old colonial era buildings, its old colonial era style, with the city dominated by the sitting and the ex High Court judges of the Allahabad High Court. In fact, everyone flaunts the status of being associated with the High Court of Allahabad, which is indeed one of the oldest and the largest high courts in the country. Has to be because UP is also a very populous state in the country. But what I noticed this time was that the number of cars with flashers. Now these days we don't have red lights, but we have blue and red flashers. Lots of cars with sirens, with beacons, and with flags of the High Court. And of course, because Prayagraj is also commissionerate, the commissionerate now includes Prayagraj, Pratapgarh, Fatehpur, and Kausambi. So you have the divisional commissioner there. You have these visiting district magistrates who keep coming to Prayagraj for meeting. And you have the police commissionerate also in Allahabad. We have several army officers in the Allahabad cantonment stroke military area. And we have a number of vice chancellors as well. Therefore, the number of cars with beacons and sirens and flashers and flags is enormous, especially in the civil lines area. So it was very interesting to see the number of cars which were flaunting the status of the occupants. I must mention here that Badri Narayan, my host, who's the director of the GB Pant Institute, he does not use a flasher or a siren or a car. He drives around in a very simple, normal car without even the marks of Government of India written on it. But then, that led me thinking about why is it that Allahabad is so fond, Allahabad or Prayagraj is so fond of flaunting these colonial era symbols. And where do these colonial era symbols come from, or do they predate the colonial era symbols? And I got into a conversation with my friend General PJS Pannu, who's the ex-deputy chief of staff, and he told me that look, flags and sirens and beacons are actually military symbols. These were all markers of army commanders, and they used to fly their flags and they had their sirens or their bugles. And in fact, that made me think of the opening verses of the Bhagavad Gita, in which the whole conversation is about the armies on the Kaurava side and the armies on the Pandava sides. And then there's a description of the various conches. I mean, the conch of Yudhishthir, the conch of Arjun, the conch of Bhishma, the conch of Drona. So these are all signifiers and markers of status and of, and each particular flag had an ensign. And what General Pannu tells me is that, these flags were earlier flown and the flag bearers held these very high so that the archers could get an idea of the direction of the wind, which way the wind is flowing. And the ensigns were also marks of authority. And if your flag fell into the enemy's hand, it also meant that you have sort of, accepted defeat. A white flag was raised when an army wanted to sue for peace or wanted to press for peace. So these were some of the reasons why these flags had evolved from those earlier times. And in the colonial era, because the East India Company and then the British government, the British Raj, in this, the institution of commissioners and collectors was very strong because the revenue authority combined in itself also police powers, and in several areas the the army detachments were also placed with the deputy commissioners, and so the deputy commissioners flew the flag. The commissioners flew the flags because these were the marks of imperial authority. And another reason why they had to fly flags was that all these 562 princely states in the country, their rajas and maharajas and nawabs and rulers, they also had their flags. And therefore, it was very important in a country or in a setup which was very feudal, that you had to have your flag cars and you had to have your ensigns, and these ensigns were designed in Europe, and there was a whole registry about these ensigns. So this is how this was continuing. And of course, militaries all over the world have their own way in which they have flags, so that flags also represent a hierarchy there. So in fact, there are three types of flags for uniformed forces. You have the triangular flag on which there is only one star, which is a brigadier's rank. So brigadiers and DIGs would use a triangular flag. Then you have a two-tailed flag, because that incorporates two stars, which is the rank of a major general or the equivalent rank of an IG police in the uniformed police forces, and the CAPFs like the BSF and the CISF and the CRPF. Naturally, because these ensigns were then gazetted, many state governments also brought in gazette notifications to specify the kind of flags which the deputy commissioners would fly. Deputy commissioners were normally given a flag, a triangular flag, to indicate that that was their equivalent rank. Chief secretaries and additional chief secretaries, they got a rectangular flag to mark their equivalence, although there were no stars on the cars of the civilian authorities. But there is a gazette notification to the effect that this is the flag that can be flown. In fact, in three states that I have known closely, Uttarakhand, Punjab, and West Bengal, there are government notifications that specify which flag can be used by which officer, though it does not say when. But it says that already these are the entitlements of the use of flags. And initially when the Modi government decided to ban red lights, then government of West Bengal said that no, our officers will fly the blue light, and a flag which was green in color, on which there was the emblem of B for Bangla displayed very prominently. Now, when all these flag codes are there, and therefore, what happened was that gradually other services also wanted to fly their flags. In fact, after the Seventh Pay Commission, the Indian Forest Service, they got a rank called the HOF, which is the head of the Forest Force. Now, although the forest force is not really a uniformed service, because only rangers and forest guards have uniforms, yet the HOF also started flying a rectangular flag. And then this was, of course, taken over by the vice chancellors as well. So we find many vice chancellors also flying their flags, although I'm not very sure whether there is any UGC notification or a Home Department notification which authorizes vice chancellors to fly the flag. But that is not the most important thing. The important thing to note is that rather than have a culture where we are cutting down on all these frills and fancies of office, smaller towns, colonial towns, towns which are not capitals, there I suddenly found that there's a profusion of these things which one does not see so often in Delhi and Noida, even in Dehradun for that matter. So I was talking to the younger officers in Uttar Pradesh about the flaunting of these symbols, and a very remarkable point came up. They said, "Look, the same set of very senior members of the judicial services, they do not flaunt rank when they are in Noida or in Greater Noida, because there they would prefer to go about their work anonymously. But in smaller towns like Allahabad, which in fact has remained a typically provincial town, there's some very old world charm about Allahabad, yet it's not become modern like the way Noida or Greater Noida has become modern. So there's something which is there, that in the old era colonial towns, people like to use beacons, sirens, flags, and have all the symbols of authority. But in Greater Noida and Noida, the very same officers would prefer to move around in relative anonymity. So I think the whole hope that I have is that as we become more urban, hopefully more urbane, we will do away with these symbols of the colonial mindset and evolve into a more egalitarian society. Uh, this is a piece that I enjoyed writing, and I'm glad to share this with you. I look forward to your feedback on the use of flags and sirens and beacons by all and sundry and everyone. Uh, Thank you.